Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Freshly Pressed. Today, we have with us Mike Kaye, the writer of Ulrius Jewels and a lot of other books, actually. I would love for Mike to introduce himself and give us a background on him. Tell us a bit about yourself,
Yes,
Mike.
sure. Yes, thank you for having me. My name's Mike Kay. I'm a graphic artist and a comic creator. And actually, my work started back in the 90s. And over time, I've won numerous awards, including a Telly Award. I was nominated for an Emmy, and just lots of art awards, different competitions I'd enter and I would win. From things such as like the Geico seatbelt contest. I won like third prize as a kid. I won first prize at the Broward County Fair for some art. I've won best in photography, actually best of show in photography at a convention they had. And just over time, I've kind of had it as a hobby side dish kind of comic book, but then I had to pay bills with, being a graphic artist as the full,
Of course.
real deal.
Yeah, that's nice. So, I also read a lot about your, like the charity work that you do, and you donated the proceeds of a comic to cancer research and things like that as well. Uh,
hmm
tell us a bit about your philanthropic side.
Yeah, when I started creating stuff, I didn't think much past just wanting to create things, and then as I started making more storylines, I thought, maybe I could help others, and so my first book, I had a doctor in there that had cancer, and I didn't know anything about cancer. But then years later, I actually had melanoma, and so it kind of hit me. I remembered the book, and I was like, huh, maybe I could help somehow, some other cause besides, just creating something that doesn't really, it's all monetary or whatever. So I thought um, my book which was called Amphoman, I
Mm.
would have, some way of helping. So I started donating to Susan Komen for the cause. It was like a cancer research, and the news picked it up, and it kind of got notoriety at that point. And then I thought, well, if I can do that for each cause that something, if I can help something, I feel like I'm doing something good. Um, and so after that, I made another book, um, part of the Amphoman Funnies, it was called. It's like a
Mm.
trilogy, and that one actually was a lifelong progress for me. Like probably in the 90s, actually it's 89 when I first started drawing stuff, and I couldn't afford to print anything. So what happened was, I figured out how to make a comic strip out of it, and I had met Mort Walker from Beetle Bailey, and
Oh, wow.
and so he was in Boca. He opened up the Cartoon Museum of Art, and I asked if I can kind of take him to lunch maybe, and he could give me some pointers. And so he declined that, but he said, you know what, we could you could write to me and I'll help you. So I took that opportunity, and what I did was I would kind of send him all my comic strips, and he would look them over and kind of review them and give me critiques and help me and guide me. And for years I was doing that with him, and I ended up getting published in the Observer, which was a college paper. It was called the Broward Community College Observer. So for 2 years, I was getting my work printed in there, and I was showing him, and he was kind of guiding me. And it was just a really hard, comic strips is really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to like, as he said, you have to, get their attention or they move on, readers,
Yeah.
and And eventually, when I graduated, that was it for kind of the comic strip, and I, kind of um, moved on from there to, just having to start college, real life, stuff after
Yeah, yeah.
college. Um, but that was
Wow.
the, yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I can totally get what you're saying because as it is, writing comics is hard, but comic strips are incredibly hard because you have to get attention in just, and you also have very limited space, right? So,
Hmm.
see, maybe it's like max 2 or 3 panels. You have to,
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I was, drawing it blindly, kind of figuring out as I went, because I would wait for them to publish it, and then I'd rush to the newsstands to get a copy, and then I'd say, "Oh man, look, you can't really read the font; it's too small, or it's too squished looking." And so then I'd have another 2 weeks to kind of fine tune my mistakes, as you will,
Mm,
and also just the idea of am I communicating my ideas right? So I would actually go inside like the lunchrooms where the students were just there on the campus, and I'd say, "Oh, what do you think of this strip?" And they'd look, and I'd get some feedback from them, and if they didn't understand it, I'd be like, "Huh, that's what they understood." Okay, so it's kind of just working like that. It was like a work in progress.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Wow. And
yeah.
it's also amazing to have uh, like a legend actually guiding you on that journey as well, right? Like it's really great to have that kind of support.
Yeah, no, he was wonderful. I know he passed away, several years
Oh,
ago,
yeah,
but I still have all the letters and the correspondence. He had given me a personalized, Beetle Bailey comic strip, and um,
so good.
probably a good dozen correspondence, like a dozen letters, back and forth over the years with him. Um,
That's
comic
so amazing.
Yeah, so the comic book, then once the digital era came, then I took the characters and was able to put them into a printed form, comic book form.
Mm,
Um, so that was like my next step.
that's so good. No, I that's incredible. Do you have you also like thought of compiling all of your comic strips into a book, or is it available already?
Yeah, that's what I actually did on the Amphoman Funnies. So
Oh,
uh,
okay.
yeah, it's a trilogy, and really what it is just every strip I ever made, I put it in there and it was so many that I had to make 3 books worth of it. And so then when I made those 3 books, it was kind of like, okay, ones that some did get published in the 90s and others there was just too many. They didn't. Now they got published as a comic book instead.
Mm,
Um, so it's Amphoman Funnies number 1, Amphoman Funnies number 2, and 3. And in there is like, I think number 3 has the first ever comic strip I made, which was, Amphoman is a frog. He's in class and he's like didn't study, so he uses his tongue and grabs the guy next to him his paper, and he's like quick as a lick. But so from there, I kind of made it where he's me. This character that's awkward in college is me. So I thought, how would he think? He's like awkward with girls, and he just doesn't, in class he didn't study, and like one of them was an accounting teacher, and he was like, okay, here's this chart and this, and then it's just a wall of numbers, and he looks at it and says, the teacher says, how do you have any questions? And he's like, yeah, how do I drop this class? And so it's kind of just my take on everything happening around the college days, um, for those 3 books.
yeah.
Um,
That's amazing. Actually, those are some of the best stories people can write. Like they come from a very personal space and they feel very authentic to the readers as well. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean, real
no,
life really helps when you add it into your work. Makes it relatable, I think, to a lot of people.
absolutely, absolutely. Dialing back a little bit, what actually got you interested in comics in the first place?
Um, hmm. Going back to, I would say late '80s. I wasn't really into comic books per se. I was more into drawing. And when I would draw stuff, I was just drawing, random mutants, or they had no real
Mm.
backgrounds to explain what they were. Um, and then, I'd always see Super Friends on TV or stuff like that, but it was more so just, maybe I could make my own superheroes, but you don't realize how important it is to have a background for any hero, as to why they exist. As a kid, you just kind of draw them. And so I kept working on really just drawing. And then probably maybe when I was 13, 12, 13, my brother had a bunch of comics in a drawer and he didn't want them anymore. And I didn't understand anything. I never opened them. I just always saw them, So when I opened them, I didn't have the patience really to read. Like I wasn't, I'm not like, a cosplayer or anything. So I kind of just liked the cover art, and I would try to, draw the covers or draw stuff just to practice. And eventually I traded them at the bookshop. And when I went to the bookstore, I kind of started looking at what's new out there. And back then I remember Todd McFarlane, he actually showed up at the comic shop, and, there he was. And he made Spider-Man #1, the 1990 version. So
Yeah.
that was right when I was starting to get my feet wet looking at comic books.
Mm.
And then I saw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was like, why is there so many different covers? Um, and I realized, oh, okay, there's different printings of them. And so that got me started. Like, I could make my own comic book.
Mm.
And even that was not as easy as I first thought.
Mm.
It was actually eighth grade where I had this teacher. She was earth science teacher, and she said, here's the periodic table. We're all elements on it. We're made up of elements, and if you break it down, we're worth about $2.20 in elements on the chart. And it got me
Mm.
thinking, like, huh, that's all we are is dust. And so I kind of started working on more concepts. Maybe we have this crystal transform machine that turns us into dust, and our powers are stuck inside something. And that's where I started making my first set of books, was with a storyline based on fusion and condensed powers. And I figured if you are crystallized, you're a gem now. And I started doing all that thought process, and that kind of explained why I have these mutant characters. They're
Mm.
gem powered fusions. And
Right.
so now I had something to work with, a storyline to work with. Um,
Awesome. Tell us
yeah,
a bit about your current comic.
yeah. So the current one, actually, I have a copy here. I've been looking at. So yeah,
Ooh.
so Ulrius Jewels. It's #1 of two, and based off my life's work, I consider it really, because going back to childhood is when I was first starting to try to make a story and kept failing miserably. And you start out drawing they're playing basketball, okay, and then they're gonna
Yeah.
get hurt and find, okay, and then 6 pages later I'm like, where's the story going? I'm just, okay, start over again. Now they're on the beach and they're finding this stuff, and I'm thinking, all right, but what, okay, I wasn't storyboarding yet. I was just trying to figure out,
Mm.
page by page. That wasn't working. So I started doing what I would call like freehand scripting. I just started writing, 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 writing. Anything that came to my mind, I wrote it. Here I am in this place I went to, and then. And after like doing so much of it, I kind of got all the anxiety out of me. I started like looking back and focusing on, all the words I'm speaking and what makes
Yeah.
sense. And it kind of got to where, okay, so it's a story of a guy that's me, okay, and he's gonna do some type of adventure, and maybe he's a hero. And so that really is the beginning of what I became Ulrius Jules' thought process, but I called it Joules because jewels themselves are like energy, power stuck
Mm.
inside of something. And I thought, so
Mm.
scientifically, it's something that can really become something even bigger. And my
Mm.
dad had written the first. He used calligraphy and he wrote it. He misspelled it and he put Jewels, like he was thinking they're just jewelry, jewels. And so I went back to no, Joules in my first set of books because of the hidden powers. And now this is my first time calling it the actual, what my late father now had called it, which was Jewels, because he does hunt for jewels.
Mm,
And they do contain jewels of energy in them. So it kind of was like a double moniker for it. Um,
mm,
and so, the idea behind the cover was that I wanted it to pull readers in. If
yeah,
it's like, I always think like if you're looking to the side, you're not going to get the attention. But if you're looking right at the person or you're jumping at them, it's going to bring in the reader.
yeah.
And so those are like thoughts behind this book, Ulrius Jewels, and the
That's
power of the
amazing.
gems.
That's amazing. The
Thank
cover
you.
looks incredibly beautiful, and once I stop sharing the screen, I'll get you to show the book again, because
Okay.
I think readers deserve to see it in a much better way. So yeah, it's definitely very pretty. Did you do the artwork and the story at both?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I directed the whole book. So I asked the artist, I need action. I want, him running at the reader. And if you notice the title, Yours Jules, he's reaching for, a glowing gem, and I want it
Yeah,
right between the logo, the Eurus and the jewels to make it like a logo almost. So it was all those little details that we're working on. And the dog behind him is actually based off my dog. So, you know, the
mm,
elements in it are based off, real life of things of my own life. Um, the uh, the fact that he's running towards something to save us, and he doesn't look like he's in a superhero uniform. He doesn't even look like a superhero. Those are all elements that I wanted to be, to define my book.
yeah.
And lots of color. Originally the first design, I think it was like a nighttime view, and I said it's too dark. I want it to look like the Borealis, where all the colors are shooting everywhere, and have it,
Mm,
just so much going on that you're just trying to stop it all from happening.
yeah.
Um, you know.
No, it seems amazing because it kind of goes with the theme when you say world is in turmoil and a man coping with PTSD. Both of that sounds a lot like chaos, and that is represented really well in the cover.
Yeah, because at the bottom, things are about to get out of hand.
Yeah, yes, and he's literally trying to catch it.
Yeah. Yeah, out of his hands. Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
Thank you.
Um, Amazing. This is usually like I ask this question to a lot of people. Uh, what what's your like top five inspirations in pop culture? Like I don't know if you like movies or books or comics or like any of those. Like any like top five of your favorite things that you draw from a lot, like your inspiration.
Hmm. Yeah, sure. So five of them, huh? I know early on, one of them was definitely Gary Larson with The Far Side. They were like single panels, and he just had that way to just make you laugh and communicate perfectly. It's like a dinosaur digging into a box of cereal looking for the free kid, and it was such quirky writing, and he was always blasted for his comic art, but the writing was what was strong, and I realized that even if I'm a good artist, if my writing is not there, it's never going to work. That's really key. So that was
Yeah.
definitely an influence. The other thing, obviously, Stan Lee. I mean, I remember, how to draw comics the Marvel way. And I must have watched that VHS tape like 100 times. John Buscema's using his pen and ink, and I'm trying to get it to look like an eyelash and stuff. Um, so to be compared to him later on was actually, I was just amazed, that
Yeah.
to be even, talked about in the same sentence. But so those are two. Third, it's funny because going back to like the days of the VHS and all the Warner Brother cartoons, I really just, when we got a VCR for the first time, and I was able to pause the screen and see, Wile E. Coyote, and I would try to draw these characters, and like just how he didn't even have to talk. He just knew all the expressions that are going through, trying to get the Roadrunner and the Pink Panther, and he just all these characters that don't even talk, but yet they had so much character to them, and so
True.
that definitely had, such an impact in it. And of course, Mort Walker, guiding me, that was like real life experience right there, where you
Mm.
have a legend that had the longest running strip, and he's giving his critiques, and he had told me, he said, make something that can last 30, 40, 50 years. People need something that can just keep going. And my first thought would have been like Scooby Doo. It's like something that it's always the same pattern. They're going to
Mm.
unmask a ghost that's not a ghost, or whatever, and it could go forever like that. And so that was definitely influential. Those impacted me.
That's amazing.
And yeah, so I don't know if I got your five or was that four, but
No, no, that's amazing. I I totally agree. I used to, when I first got the VCR,
yeah.
um, I used to record Batman the animated series all the time on TV, and just, yeah, I used to draw. I learned to draw actually by drawing Batman a lot,
Yeah, okay.
especially when when the title card comes up for Batman the animated series, and there's lightning, and
Hmm.
this Batman in the shadows.
Okay.
It's just a silhouette of the Batman against the lightning. It's
Yeah.
it's. I just started drawing with that image, and it was such a big inspiration for me.
Did
Um,
did you pause the screen? Because I used to pause it so I could like have a light
all
table,
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Um,
Also, like X-Men, the animated series, like I watched it a lot. I recorded it all the
yeah.
time on my VCR.
Hmm.
Um, Superman, I don't know, like so many of them. All Saturday morning cartoons, I guess.
All those.
Yeah,
The Spider-Man one, that was a good one.
that
Um,
was a good one.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, all those cartoons, they're like a lost art, really, because now it's, no more hand drawn, I don't think, as much as it used to be. But, the
Mm,
Hanna-Barbera and all that. But I just thought they were really just groundbreaking. I mean, you know, how they had the music, the sound effects, and you could just watch it all day long, like the whole day, and you were, never bored. One after the next, it would be Woody Woodpecker would show up, and then the Addams Family, and it was like, you were just hit by all this entertainment, and you didn't
yeah,
need any electronic device other than a TV screen, really, is, was
yeah.
it. Um, but
No, you're absolutely right. I was actually addicted to them, like Flintstones, and then Jetsons, and so many Hanna Barbera cartoons. I mean, they were legends, I think.
yeah, yeah. But now I think, unfortunately, it's a little too much distraction. I think everyone has so much to look at now. It's hard to focus a little. Um, when I spoke to a comic guy the other day, he said, "Do you know how many comics come out in 1 month for the store?" And I was thinking maybe 50. He said 250. I said, "Oh my God!"
Wow.
And he's like, "If I could just buy one of each of those, I fill my shelf with it to try to have
Yeah,
them, to sell
exactly.
them."
Exactly.
I was like, you know but all the variant covers, and I was like, oh my God. So it's like, how do you pay attention, to all this stuff, that hits you. um
And that's
but
just the
yeah.
stuff that's in the stores, like, if you consider
Yeah.
Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all of the indie stuff.
Hmm.
That's just, I think we get like 500 to 1,000 new comics every single month, and that's
Yeah,
just crazy.
it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, and it is kind of skewed to an extent, but if you have good creative stuff and an outlet for it, and you can figure out how to get your work out, then it's a passion. Really have to have a passion to do all that. And
Absolutely.
and because it's got to be more than just monetary gain. It's got to be more than that, because I always like tell my kids, if you're doing something and it doesn't feel like work, then you're in the right field. You don't want to feel like you're going somewhere and you're just slaving away and just you hate it and it's terrible. And because if you put me out in the sun and I'm going to mow the lawns all day, I can't do that. It would just be too much for me, even if you're paying me a ton of money. Like everyone has to find their niche, and be able to do
Mm,
something that doesn't feel like work. Um,
that's true.
you know,
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
yeah.
And sometimes it's also like a lot of times people work on comics part time because that's their passion, and something that takes away from their like day to day, drudgery
Mm-hmm.
of like a lot of people actually work in say like retail or other jobs, and they create comics in their free time because that's their real passion.
Mm-hmm.
So like I truly admire those kind of people because they're so driven, and really like they want to create something,
Mm-hmm.
and something that does now not allowed in their like day to day jobs, right? So
Yeah, yeah. And some of the comic shops they'll invite creators, and it's nice to see other people having the same passion, or the camaraderie, stuff like that, where you're not alone. You have other people in the same have the same dreams as you, and um
absolutely.
so that's always nice to see, and also just having people dress up and stuff. I mean, all power to everyone that wants to do those things. I think, some of us are a little more shy to do it, but if it's something that you like doing, yeah, it's all part of the
Yeah,
living the dream. Uh,
absolutely, absolutely. I I actually like till few years ago I was too shy to dress up, to be honest. Like now like we have Comic Con here next weekend, and
yeah,
I may not dress up this time, but at least last year, like I dressed up as Superman, and it was funny that I got like a guest for my podcast dressed up as a Superman. That's how amazing the
yeah,
community is. Like you're dressed up as Superman, and a guy will take you seriously.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
uh,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, please.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like Halloween, but year round.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's also like it's a lot of fun just being there. Like if you're at a con, there's so much energy. The people love the people with genuine passion, both the readers and the writers, and artists and
Mm-hmm.
everyone who's there. They just love the medium. They just you can see that
Yeah.
they want to be there. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like they're there for a compulsion or anything. It's they take their entire weekend and they come there and
Mm-hmm.
spend time talking about books with so many other people. It's just such a passion that's shared with within that community as well. So
Yeah, I had one guy, he was dressed up as the Joker, and then he came by and I was trying to sell my books, and he said, "Oh, what do you have?" And I said, "I have, this book, and it's Amphoman, and there's two versions." And so he was like, "Well, which one's the first one?" I said, "This, the one version was when I was a kid. I was 13 when I made it, so it's done in markers. And the other one is the remake, which obviously I was more mature and I could add more depth to my stories and stuff." And he was like, "Oh, no, no, I want the original." So, so okay, some people are, they're true collectors, or they want the nostalgia that's from the past, more so than the
absolutely.
remake, or so that stuck with me. Another time I was raising money for in St. Francis, food pantries. So I was raising money for the homeless and hunger in New York, and I was selling, at a table, and a little girl came up to me, and she handed me a quarter, and I thought she was going to buy a book or something. I said, "Oh, no, that's your quarter. Keep that." And she said, "No, it's to feed someone." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I felt like I felt it was taken back, but it was, I put it in the jar, and I felt good that, it's spreading the help, to want to help or do
Absolutely.
something good. Um,
No, that's amazing. And like, yeah, kindness feeds kindness, I guess. Like it's amazing that you were trying to do something, and people believed in your cause. So that's amazing.
hmm Yeah, it's always a good thing to see that you're doing something more for the world to make it a better place. The best you could. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of like if you rip out a plant, you want to put two plants back, or something. But
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
That's very cool. If you want to show the book in physical form, go ahead
yeah,
and do
sure.
it. If you have any variant covers or anything, just show it off, you know.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
So this is the one that you had on the screen. That's the new one, Ulrich Jules
yeah,
#1. And there'll be #2 will be eventually. I'm not sure when it'll be released. It's by Advent. And give a shout out for them. Really the masterminds, behind everything, Tony and Advent. It's just incredible. I mean,
that's
um,
amazing.
yeah, it's like, you know, the work that they put out, and then to you have to kick up your level just to be at their level, and it's the that I just feel like I always have to step my game up to a level to be just at an equal level. Um,
Nice.
the other one I actually have is just one that um, was the original. This was the Ampho Man, so this was the one that I had,
Ooh,
going back maybe 10 years ago, and it's a
nice.
graded copy.
Yeah.
So there was different versions or variants, you would say, I guess, that I didn't mean to do. Like I was misspelling something, or I edited it and I didn't put a certain part, and I was like, oh man, I got to reprint it. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those things happen, and or there was like something that was misprinted, and someone has a double cover or something that type of stuff. But what happened was I was after they printed some, I wouldn't say got mad, but you put so much passion and effort into something, and then when you see it's kind of not going somewhere and you don't know how to really
Mm,
fix it, you kind of feel a little resentment, and you're thinking, why am I doing this, Or
mm,
at least I had that at one point. So what I did was I stopped printing all of them, and I said, that's it. Whoever was fortunate enough to buy it from me or cared enough to buy it or have it, they get it, but there's no more. That's it. So I
mm.
kind of just stopped the press, and I think there was like 125 of this one,
Okay.
and then book 10 or 11 near the end, there's probably only a dozen of them or something, because
Oh,
it
wow.
was only whatever shows people went to, and I had them there. I sold it to them at cover price, and then I was like, no more. That's it. So I keep it kind of to myself in a way. It's my work, and I'll keep it and enjoy it for kind of like you keep it in your closet and you enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and that's how I was kind of putting that part of my life. And when then I years later thought, okay, I'm back. I've gotten over that, taking it personal type of thing. I'm ready to create more, and you don't want to be stumped at something. The worst thing is to have like where you're stumped on one thing and you never get better, or you always have resentment, or you just stay stuck, and you don't want that in your life. You want to keep moving. So
Mm,
once I got to this point where I'm like, I'm ready to write again. I haven't done it in years, but I'm like, I'll make something new, and you know, that's how Ulrich Jules came about. I still took little accent, parts from my original stories and stuff, but it's totally now different story arc, and I kind of, if I don't know if you could see on the cover where I kind of even say like it's the Amphoman prequel. It's kind of like
oh,
I try to put
nice.
it
Yeah, I
before
do
my
see it
earlier
now.
work. Yeah, so I thought it's still a part of an old story arc, but it's the new work. I breathe new life into it.
That's
Um,
amazing. I can totally believe that, because when you are with the story for that long, that story
hmm
kind of becomes part of you, and then anything that you do after that has, like, reminiscence of that, or some traces of that story. So
hmm
if not and a deep dive. So yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You don't want to get stuck in one genre, or you want to kind of expand your horizons. At least that's what
Absolutely.
I felt. Um,
Absolutely. No, that's great. We're coming close to time, but I will
okay.
give you the floor for 2 minutes and talk about Ulrius Jewels, and just give the pitch and where to get it, and all of that. So
Oh, okay, great. So yeah, so the book Ulrius Jules, I am gonna be actually next month. I'm gonna be at Plasticon. It's called. It's like a toy and comic show. It's at Dave and Buster's. It's in Hollywood, Florida. It's October 14th from 11 to 6, and it's free. So there'll be toys there, and I'll have a place there selling copies of Ulrius Jules, signed copies. Um, they're $5 is the cover price, And I guess if anyone wants to reach out, my email is kpeople@hotmail.com. So the letter K, the word people, because I do have other copies available that are just my own stash, and so I don't want to sell all of them because I need some for myself, but
Yeah.
I'll share a little bit.
Yeah.
It is available in comic shops, but I think you have to ask the comic store because they may not have it on the shelf. And there's also, I think, because I'm new at this too, kind of this, I'm the old school like kind of guy where I'll hand draw, print it. I'm not used to social media so much, but I know it's
Mm.
on like Pull Box, they called it Previews World, it's called. So it's
Previous
on
world. Yeah.
Previews, yeah. And you actually, I think, have to get a password there to log in, and then you could order it, and it'll be shipped to your comic shop.
Yeah.
Um, so that's that for getting the copies. And I'm always available for signings, and I'll go to comic shops if anyone wants me to be there, or I'll try to talk somewhere if I'm invited. I'm always up for those opportunities. Um, and yeah, I mean, PTSD itself, that's, something that's kind of, it's hard for people to understand. It's not like you could look at someone and physically say that person has PTSD. They could look
Yeah.
perfectly fine. But once you start talking to them and you see that they're either going through psychosis or there's some depression or there's something deeper, then you realize they're going to need some help more than what anyone could really provide. Then maybe even medications. All those things go into play with that. And you know, when I experienced dealing with my child that had it, I brought him to the doctor and like, what's wrong with him? And I said, well, talk to him. And they talked to him, and he's like, well, someone outside might be, honking their horn to make us feel better. And then you realize, like, oh, okay, that might be psychosis. And for you to think, you think someone's kidding, but they're not kidding. It's like something really has happened wrong. But then, even to that point, he passed his physical. There's nothing wrong. Your pulse is fine. Everything's good with you. So it's almost just like your mind is something wrong, not your body. And I figured there was a character in my book that he was a villain. And when I realized that that was the original Ampho Man, the original this one, there was a villain, and then I realized he's not a villain actually. He probably has PTSD, believe it or
Mm.
not, and he's actually
Mm.
a good guy, and that kind of
Mm.
changed my whole idea of characters being a villain that aren't. They're just victims of themselves. And
That's
so
amazing.
that's how I kind of have this new storyline that hopefully readers will enjoy.
That's really, really amazing. Again, you're drawing from a very personal space, and it's it's uh, it's it's a shame that mental health doesn't get talked about so much. And
Hmm.
there's so much stigma and social shame attached to these things. It's unbelievable because these are regular things people actually go through life. Like a
Hmm.
lot of people actually go through life with a lot of mental health issues, and I don't know why it's not treated the same as physical health.
Hmm. Hmm.
When 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 you get hurt, like you bleed, or you cut or something,
Yeah.
people pay attention to that.
Hmm.
But when you see that someone's going through something, when they tell you that they're going through something, I don't know why people a lot of times don't take that seriously. So I feel that they're the same. Like mental health and physical health both need
Hmm.
equal amount of nurturing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, one of the things that stood out to me was, and I'm sure you may have seen it too, is when you see someone like in the road and they might be like going, "Hey," and you're like, oh, that guy's crazy, get away from him. But actually, that person just needs some medication. They need some mental health help, and no one's
Yeah.
helping them. So it's like a sad thing because there's nothing really wrong with them if they can get the right treatments, and that's
Yeah.
that's part of the sad thing. But
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Anyway, thanks a lot for coming on the show, Mike. I really
thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it. Please go check out Yulrius Jewels. Sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation. I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll link the previous world in the description, and you can order it in your local comic book shop. Um, Yeah, all the best on your future endeavors as well. Um, Thanks for coming
Thank
again.
you. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I know people do have tendency to say, how to spell it, but it's Ulrius Jules because it's actually universe Jules. So I just
Ah,
made it Ulrius instead of universe. But um,
nice.
yeah. So well, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Take care.